So the 8 steps from Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master, though how I've used them in my own game has subtly tweaked and evolved, the 8 steps are really solid. One of the reasons why I'm happy about Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master, it is a style of game prep that I myself use multiple times a week and have done so for like the past 5 years. I have hundreds of games that I've run that I've used these 8 steps, and I've talked to many GMs who have used them, and we find this to be a good approach. It is not the end-all approach, and one of the keys, one of the purest keys of the 8 steps of Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master is that it evolves, and you can evolve it. You can decide how you use it. You can decide which steps you like, which steps you don't, how you want to change the steps. And almost every GM I've talked to likes them and then tells me about how they changed it slightly for their system. And I never get upset about that because that is its intention. Its intention is to serve you. Those 8 steps serve you. Each of the steps serve you. I say that over and again. A lot of times I'll get a question from patrons or from other people that say like, hey, I'm doing it this way. Am I doing it wrong? And the answer is no. If that works for you, you're doing it right because it only serves you. It doesn't serve me. It doesn't serve anybody else. The notes are not for anybody else other than you. And it's if it works at your game, it works. But that also means there aren't ways that we can individually improve on how we're doing it. And I have little subtleties that I've talked about where I've changed some of the ways that I approach the 8 steps. An example of that is I used to say, throw away all of your old secrets and write 10 new secrets each time. I started to not do that, and I would go back and look at my old secrets and say, yeah, these secrets are pretty good. I'm going to move these forward, and I will actually bump secrets forward, and it saves me some time. If maybe 5 of the 10 secrets are still relevant but have not yet been revealed, then I can just move those forward, and I save time. And obviously, one of the big steps, one of the big drives of Return to the Lazy Dungeon Master is saving time. So that's something that I've changed a little bit on. I heard somebody earlier that said they actually bring their whole set of notes forward. You can certainly do that if it helps you. I think it always helps to like refresh yourself on them and refresh the notes a little bit, making sure that the things that happened have been accounted for, things that are no longer true or removed. You don't want your notes to get too stale, but you can certainly bring the rest of your notes forward as well. I don't do that. There are only portions of my notes that I will bring forward. Secrets and clues I will bring forward. Scenes, sometimes some of the scenes I will bring forward. Locations I could definitely bring forward if they haven't explored all the locations that I'm looking at. If I haven't revealed any treasure, I will move treasure forward. But generally speaking, things like the refresh of scenes, a new strong start, reviewing the characters, those sorts of things I kind of want to do each time that I'm doing my prep notes. But one of the things I've been thinking about, and as I've been doing my prep in Obsidian, one of the things I've been doing is trying to make sure that my notes fit on a single page. And sometimes I get wordy in my notes and they go longer than a page. So I've been thinking about how to consolidate my notes so that it's easier for me to reference stuff at the table and my notes can remain generally shorter than they do. And this is this concept which I'm working on right now, calling mashing up the 8 steps. And one of the inspirations for this were the new adventure scenarios that are inside the 2024 Dungeon Master's Guide. Chris Perkins talked about these. I think we're going to start seeing more scenarios like this in future Wizards of the Coast D&D products. But the idea was a short, abbreviated set of notes. We will look at one of them right now. So the Fouled Stream is a scenario, and inside the Dungeon Master's Guide, it takes up a half a page. And when I saw a half a page, I was like, man, I consolidate my notes a lot. And for me, I need about a page for me to feel comfortable to run a game like I'm running one in an hour and 15 minutes. And in an hour and 15 minutes, I know that I need more than just a half a page of notes in order to feel like I've got enough to run a game. However, I was really taken by the idea of consolidating notes down to such a small amount. And I wasn't the only one. Elizabeth, Patchwork Paladin, over on the Sly Flourish Discord server, but also on the website, patchworkpaladin.com, which you can find a link in the show notes. Excellent blog. She was also interested in this, and she took the Fouled Stream scenario, and she highlighted the situations that fit the 8 steps of Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master. Scenes, secrets, treasure, monsters, NPCs, all the different steps from the 8 steps. She highlighted them in the notes to kind of say where they are. It's a really interesting take. So here she talks about that so when she takes these and breaks it down into the 8 steps, she has like the characters say that at level 1, you might exist in a village or have a contact in the city of Greyhawk, right? She kind of highlights that as one. The strong start, the folk of the High Eyrie notice a fungal growth in the river, right? She kind of takes that from one of the steps. Scenes and dramatic questions are all these kind of purple ones are the individual scenes. Secrets and clues are kind of the yellow ones are sort of the secrets and clues. The monsters are the orange ones, which are the monsters that are listed in here. NPCs. So she did a really interesting job of pointing to the different parts of the 8 steps of return in the scenario laid out by Wizards of the Coast in here. And I've been thinking about this for a few months, right? I've been thinking about this since the Dungeon Master's Guide came out. And I was like, can you kind of refine the 8 steps down to sort of shorten your notes a little bit? And at what cost? What terrible cost? Dramatic music moment. I'm going to enjoy a coffee while that tension flows into you. I need some water too. So there's a couple of areas where I saw the consolidation really work out, and we're gonna talk about some of that now. We're actually going to look at some of my notes to see how that actually played out. So a couple of areas where you can consolidate the 8 steps. And the idea behind consolidating the 8 steps is that you can you're almost following, if you want to get really nerdy, prepare for some nerddom. We're going to talk about database administration a little bit and database design. In the world of database design, there's a thing known as normalization. The idea behind normalization and the 3, I forget them all, but there's like three rules of database normalization, the normal forms of database normalization, including Boyce Codd normalization. If you really get nerdy, you can look them up. But the idea is essentially you have one thing one time, right? The idea is that whenever you have an element of data, you have it in only one place. It is only ever defined by one thing, and it only exists there once. That's the premise behind database normalization. It doesn't mean that works all the time. And actually, there's a whole concept called database denormalization, where you realize that the complexity of trying to ensure that all of your data only ever exists in one place at one time and only ever exists there actually can make your database super complicated and hard to work with, which is why you have something like database denormalization. And now you have databases that aren't even relational databases. They are instead like open text database or document stores and things like that. That's, but it matters in this context because what you're essentially saying is like, there are times where I would repeat myself in my notes. An example would be, I have an NPC. So I put him in the NPC section because I have an NPC section. But also I'm going to mention that NPC in the secrets and clues because that NPC, there's a secret that's related to that NPC. So that now becomes a secret and clue. But also they're going to meet that NPC in a scene. So do I need to have the same NPC listed in 3 different parts, or can I just stick that NPC in one of those places? If I bother to, thank you, Zero Alpha, put database normalization in the Wikipedia article. There you go. So you can look it up on Wikipedia. But the idea is like, sometimes I don't need to mention the same NPC 3 times in my notes. In fact, that actually is going to crud my notes up. That overweights that NPC in the rest of my notes. I kind of have to read past because every word that you have in your notes, it makes it harder to find the other words that you need. So a few areas where you can sort of combine things together exist inside the notes depending on the circumstances that you need them for. So an example is you could have secrets in your review the characters section. So just before I recorded this show, I actually did some prep for my Midgard Tales of the Valiant game using the 8 steps. And you can see some of the examples of what I'm talking about in the notes that I did for right now. So an example is I do my review the characters step. And a big thing that I've been doing in my review the characters is essentially writing down something that ties the character to the game. That is the equivalent of a secret. So right off the bat, I already have 5 secrets. I actually have certainly more than 10 overall, but you can actually take some of your secrets and directly tie it to your character. And now that you know that you've got a character tied to a secret already. The characters are one of the great ways to reveal secrets because it's one of the ways you know that you can reveal a secret because the character is in the game. So tying secrets and clues to characters, you can actually take some of your secrets and clues and put them in the character section, and it consolidates your notes a little bit. I've got 5 secrets here that are connecting the characters to the rest of the game. These are things the character might know or might learn as they interact with the game. Good way of consolidating your secrets. The strong start is the first scene. So this is something I just started doing. I would usually have a strong start section and a scene section. I've now been going back through my template and I've moved it so that the strong start is the first bullet item under the scene section because I know that I'm going to have other ones. I still have a strong start. I still treat it as a separate step. I still make sure to focus on it. But when I'm consolidating in my notes, the first scene is the strong start, right? That in this case, Athan Iron Chest, the orc leader, the sharpened coin, is going to come and talk to the characters. Very first thing that's going to happen. But then I don't have to write it again. I don't either have to omit it from the scenes or write it again in the scenes. What I caught myself doing is I would often, in order to make sure the scene section was complete, I would put the strong start in the scenes. Well, why not just do that alone? Why not just move the strong start into the scenes? We're not reducing the steps. We are not now down to 7 steps. I mean, you could almost think of it like, oh, step 2 is the scenes and the first step of step 2 is strong start. I still think you should think of it separately. I think thinking of the strong start separately is still important because it is this big focus. But when you're listing it in your notes, you can drop it under scenes. So that's something that I did. Locations, NPCs, and monsters exist mixed up with the other steps, right? This is something I started. I actually was keeping this in mind when I was writing my notes. And the example is Athan Iron Chest, orc leader of the sharpened coin, is listed under the strong start. And he's part of a scene. I don't also need to put him under notable NPCs because he's already up here. Right? I already have him. I know when he's going to show up. I already wrote some information about him, so I have enough information to remember who he is. And for me, the most important thing to remember for me is his name. I suck at names. I'm pretty good at everything else. I know the characters. I can improvise mannerisms and stuff like that. But here, I just need the name. So I have the name. But if you are the kind of person who needs to think up a little bit ahead of time about what this character is going to act like, you could either do it by like tying it to a character in fiction that you like and just do it in parentheses. You can add the other stuff in this section to kind of give you what you need in order to role play that NPC. But you don't necessarily need to do it in the NPC section. You can do it in the scenes. So this is kind of interesting because if you look at it, scene 1 is the strong start and contains an NPC. Super efficient. Right? We have 3 parts of our prep in 1 sentence in the beginning. And this gets back to the like, can you do it in half a page? I still don't think I could do it in half a page, but you can consolidate and you can get very far. The same is true. I did it also here, right? The goal is assassinate Vestar, the Shining Storm, the Akinji in charge of the Southern Dragon Coil Legions. The NPC is listed in the scenes, which makes it easy for me. In this case, it's a goal. I put goals as a scene. Remember, the scenes is kind of the catch-all step for, you can kind of put anything you want into scenes. And I put the goal into scenes. That works there. I also have like infiltration of the third heaven. The third heaven is a location. I can list it under locations, but I don't need to because I've already got it up here in scenes. So that works. The same way, secrets and clues, I actually have considering I have 5 secrets and clues for the characters, and then also this looks like more than 10 secrets and clues in the actual secrets and clues because they expanded outwards, but that's because I put some locations under secrets and clues. So I have some things like NPCs. I have Vestar is served by a white spell scale vassal named Stonewolf, sworn to Ibelin. Again, another NPC that's listed. This is a secret that the characters can learn, but it involves an NPC. So I can just have the NPC in here, and then I don't necessarily need to worry about having him under the NPC section too. I have some location information. Resides in the former Nerderin Citadel high up in the mountains, the former seat of the Nurian Lord Kiranin Redseeker, called the Citadel of the Third Heaven. It is a seat of Baal-Hotep, Lord of the Heavens and King of all dragons. This gives me a lot of, it's a kind of a big secret, right? I got a lot of hyphenation going on there too. It gives me a lot of things. NPCs, previous NPCs, history, flavor for the location, interesting notes about the location, stuff that I can use to improvise the location when I'm running it, all condensed into 3 sentences in a single secret and clue. So that's pretty useful. So you can tell. Then I get into some other more detailed. Again, we have sort of another. This is one where I could have actually condensed it further. I have a secret that the middle finger of the lower left hand of Nakresh, which is a criminal organization. I love that they're called the middle finger. The middle finger of the lower left hand of Nakresh are hoping to rob Vestar. Well, I could have listed Melsoon Graveheart, the halfling commander of the third finger. I think it's Folk Thorntoes. Folk Thorntoes is the leader of the... Oh, no, different guy. Melsoon Graveheart is the commander of the third finger of the lower left hand of Nakresh. I could have mentioned that in this secret and consolidated one NPC down to a secret as well. So you can actually consolidate an awful lot in your secrets and clues. I still think secrets and clues are one of those things where you saw that I moved some of the secrets and clues to characters. But generally speaking, I like to have a meaty secret and clues section because that is really, to me, secrets and clues are kind of the big pile of stuff that I really want to have in front of me to be able to make the game rich and alive and interesting and deep. And I want to have more stuff in there than I'm going to reveal. so that they never run out of material. The places feel new and interesting. There's more lore than the characters can grasp and the players can grasp, so the world feels real. So I love having a lot in Secrets and Clues, but the interesting thing is you can pack a lot of information into Secrets and Clues from other steps and still work it out. So those are examples of how to mash together a bunch of things. But I mentioned earlier on that concept of database normalization, that every element of data only exists in one place, is only defined by one thing. And that way you have completely atomized all of your data in the sense that I don't need to have an NPC listed in multiple places and things like that. But now we talk about database denormalization. Again, super nerdy. But the idea here is maybe it isn't always the best approach to have this. For example, if your NPCs are buried in all of your secrets and clues, does that make it easier or harder for you to find them? Is it sometimes easier to list them out in the list of NPCs so that you can quickly reference that list? That's one important thing. Is it actually easier for you to use? So I think, for example, having the strong start in the scenes is not bad. One of the tricks I do to try to make things work a little better, which I only did here occasionally, is bolding the names of NPCs so that for scannability, it's pretty easy for me to look at the notes and pick out the names of NPCs. I should have done that more in this than I did. If I had time, I would go and highlight it more. Scipio was mentioning that Elizabeth is probably shouting right now about color highlighting notes. Yes, color highlighting your notes can be a great way to keep a reference. I don't do it. I don't have that kind of time, but it's probably a really good idea. So you might think about it. There's another area though. One of the reasons that we separated out the 8 steps of Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master into those steps is so that you could take one step and move it into another. You are building your game at the table from all of the components that you have listed in your 8 steps. This is something I feel pretty strongly about. There's an advantage to having a list of monsters separate from where they exist so that you can move those monsters around when it makes sense. The same thing for NPCs. You don't know necessarily when a character might meet an NPC, so having a list of NPCs so you know that you can bring one of those NPCs into the scene when it makes sense works. So trying to pack too much stuff, particularly packing too much stuff into scenes, is going to make your game more rigid. This is actually how I believe most GMs actually prep their game. I think if we look at it, it actually looks a lot more like the kind of prep that exists in the Dungeon Master's Guide, where essentially everything is a scene. When you're planning your adventure, I think a lot of GMs do it this way. When you're planning your scenario for your game, you plan a series of scenes, and the scenes have locations, and the scenes have NPCs, and the scenes have monsters, and the scenes have treasure. And all of those are consolidated into one big block. And then you connect these 4 or 5 blocks together. And then you just run it. Run scene 1, run scene 2, run scene 3, run scene 4, run scene 5. I'm not a big fan of that because it doesn't allow you to treat the entire scenario as a big evolving situation where monsters can move around depending on what goes on, where NPCs may show up in one place or another, where situations or secrets might be discovered in different places from those that you might have thought of at the first place. And when you separate all this stuff out, it means that you improvise when you sit down at your game. You know what your first scene is because you have your strong start and you go boom. But then from that point onward, now you're bringing in the input from the players and what they're doing, and then the next scene kind of comes together from all these pieces and then goes boom and smashes together and then drops in, and now you know where that scene is going to be. Maybe the same monsters are there that you thought of, maybe it's a different set of monsters. And there's a couple of things that can change those scenes. One is what the characters bring to it, and what randomness occurs could change how things go. Did the characters do really well in their stealth check? Then maybe there aren't that many monsters in this room. Did they suck at it? Maybe there's a lot of monsters in this room. But another thing that changes is pacing. You get to decide the pacing of the game. Something Monty Cook talked about in Explorer's Keys for Numenera is the idea of having the main key, the main driver for an adventure, be something that you could move around so that you could either bring it up forward or push it back, depending on the pacing of the game. That pacing in adventure is super important, and giving ourselves the flexibility of moving things around in an adventure in order to make it the most fun is important. And one of the ways that we can do that is keeping our stuff separate in our notes to make sure that we can move stuff around. So I think that that's something we need to keep in mind when we are consolidating our notes, when we're mashing things together, that it would be pretty easy, for example, to take our session notes and take the scene section, which you can see right now is only 3 bullets for me, and blow it up into like main scene 1, main scene 2, main scene 3, main scene 4, with each one containing, here are the things the characters can learn, here are NPCs they can interact with, here are monsters they might fight, right? And you could do all of that, but then it's going to be harder for you to break it up if it doesn't go that way. And in my opinion, it's easier to bring that stuff back together again. So when you're consolidating, I think it's really a good idea. You've seen me doing it. I've been playing around with the idea of consolidating my notes and consolidating the 8 steps to fit the kind of scenario I'm going to run and to reduce the amount of total stuff in my notes. But I think it's important to stay conscious of that original goal, which is making sure that we have put prep in front of us, that we are comfortable using to run our games, and particularly to improvise the games that we run. So try consolidating your steps. Try playing around with it, but also keep in mind what your notes are for and how they can help you run your game. I hope you enjoyed today's show. If you did, the best way to stay up on all of the things that I do is by subscribing to the Sly Flourish newsletter. It is absolutely free to sign up. You can find a free adventure generator for signing up, and you get a weekly article related to the world of tabletop role-playing games, all to your inbox, all absolutely free. You can find a link to subscribe in the show notes. You can also become a patron of Sly Flourish. Patrons get access to all kinds of awesome tips, tricks, tools, scenarios, different things to help you run your games. Our awesome dedicated server, a dedicated Discord server, and you help me put on shows like this. To the patrons, thank you so much. And you can pick up any of my books, including City of Arches, Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master, Forge of Foes, The Lazy DM's Companion, and more at the Sly Flourish bookstore. All the links for those are in the show notes. Thank you so much. Have a great day, and get out there and play an RPG.